Let's face it, the billable hour, it's a great way to get started, it's a great way to estimate, it's a great way to bill your clients. But service companies cannot scale on the billable hour. If a service company wants to scale, they must do this. The billable hour, you charge X rate for X number of hours, and you provide a service based off of that. That's the basic idea of the billable hour. It's a great way to get started. You'll pay me for a thing you don't want to do, and I'll charge you per hour to do that thing. And if you want to grow, you basically find more people to pay you more money, and then you find more employees to bill more hours, and they just kind of keep growing, right? More billable hours, bigger projects, more clients, more employees, and you grow and grow and grow. But that's not a way to scale. Ultimately, if you want to scale your company, you need to start thinking about your service company more like a tech company thinks about a product. A product company is always looking for ways to be efficient. There are ways to automate, the ways to have one value proposition meet as many customers as possible. And a service company struggles with that because, again, they're thinking about the billable hour, and there's only so many people that can render that billable hour. But if you think about productizing your services, that's an opportunity to create the efficiencies needed to actually scale your service companies. So what does it look like to productize your services? Let's start with the basics. The easiest way is just to look at how you might be able to just productize your service offering. Meaning, how can you look at ways to automate or create major efficiencies in what you do today, reducing the amount of hours it takes to do that thing, but still charging a premium rate or a value rate for that service. So this might look like using technology to automate what you do. It might look like creating a really packaged service that you can repeat over and over and over again without having to customize it every single time. So a good example of this in the design industry or in the consulting industry is things like design sprints. So design sprint is this really packaged 5-day or 3 to 5 day process that we do it the same way every single time, and it can be applied to almost any company. And we don't have to think about customizing each time. So as we get more efficient at it, we actually get better at it, and we can charge the client even more money, even though we're not taking more time to do it. Another example of this might be in the IT services industry. They might do things like security testing, like pen testing or vulnerability testing. And there's lots of tools in the market that allow them to provide that or to do that service. And so they can run those scans, they can run those pen tests, and still charge the client a premium rate, but actually get more efficient for setting the automation of those tests running without them having to have a person sitting there running the test, looking it over, and wasting hours to get it done. Another example is a construction company. So imagine that you're building multi-unit housing, right? So these big stacked houses of apartments. We're seeing these pop up over all cities across the country, right? Most of them look basically the same. And you could definitely have really skilled professional workers go out and hammer every single board, every single truss, every single, what are they called? Stud, and make sure that they're right on the center, and make sure it's all done really, really well, hand-built, custom, but you're gonna bill on the hour to get that done. Or you could actually build 60%, 70% of those walls in a factory through machines, and then ship the walls to the site, literally lean them up and fasten them together, and do it a lot more efficient, but still charge that full rate for that construction project. It's a way to productize something that you do over and over and over again, but you don't need to have some custom hour of work being done. Then how do you go about thinking about productizing your services? I think one way is to look at the things that you're getting really, really good at. Are there areas of your business where you say, oh man, we're doing this the same way, and while we're customizing it here or there, we could probably narrow our focus in and say, let's just keep consistent. Let's train people on the same way of doing things over and over again. Let's find a tool that allows us to repeat this process faster. Let's automate some part of our process. Take inventory, look around you, just take a step back and look to see if there's something in your offering that can be productized. It doesn't mean the whole organization has to be productized, but you could just start with one service offering or maybe one category and productize that, and then look for additional ways that you can scale that out to your other service offerings. Some services aren't gonna be able to do this with all of them, and that's okay. But look for those unique ways that you can start to automate or start to repeat services faster with more efficiency. The second way to productize your service company is to actually look for how might you productize your knowledge. This is really popular right now with coaches or with consultants online. So if anybody's on Instagram or on LinkedIn, you're gonna see lots of people saying, hey, follow me, and I'm gonna drip these little knowledge nuggets out to you, right? And then you start following them and they're like, hey, show up for our webinar. And then you go to that webinar and they're like, hey, did you know we have a course that will take you even deeper into this? What that individual has done is they've taken some expertise, some experience they have, hopefully some real experience that actually proves they know what they're talking about, and has productized it into a learning solution. So they've been able to put it in some type of learning management system or some type of video course that allows them to say, I'm going to charge you this rate for this knowledge, but I can sell one package, one course to like 1,000 people or 10,000 people or 1 million people, instead of me sitting down one-to-one to have a conversation and teaching you how to do it. So knowledge is a great way for you to say, we have a special sauce. We do things a little bit different than our competitors. What if you took that knowledge, that special sauce, and you actually turned it into the product? The best way to approach this is to actually look for, again, taking assessment of your company, looking at what's that special way that we do things, and writing it down. Turn it first into a PDF. This is how we approach these things. You're probably doing this already as you think about training your employees or onboarding new team members. Take that onboarding process or that training material and think about, I wonder if I could sell that to my peers or my competitors. Or maybe my clients who can't afford to pay me the full rate for our services would be willing to pay a little bit less to use my training material to get their people to do it really well in-house. These are all great options to figure out how you can get revenue from one to many out of the knowledge that you have. A great example of this is the classic Tony Robbins, right? He was always up on stage saying, here's the knowledge bombs about business and life and ways of working that I'm gonna drop on you. And of course, you had to pay to go see him. And then you had to pay to have a course from him, or you had to pay for his book. And so he could take his knowledge, his one guy's knowledge, and actually sell it to tens of thousands of people, and of course, over the course of many, many years, probably hundreds of thousands of people. But ultimately, if you really wanted to sit down with Tony, you were gonna pay an extremely premium rate to sit down one-to-one with him. So the last way to productize your service company is to think about making your service company a tech company. So we've seen lots of organizations that have actually grown to the size where the off-the-shelf solutions like SaaS products or product management solutions or CRMs or a little estimation tool or whatever weren't meeting the needs of their unique ways of working, especially at the size that they become. So it might have worked when you were 100 people, might have worked when you were 500 people, but maybe you've gotten to be thousands of employees or tens of thousands of employees, and you start realizing there's an opportunity to build technology for yourself. Now, as you build that technology, sure, it's gonna help you to run better, more efficient. So that kind of goes back up to number one, which is maybe productizing through automation. But what if that automation, through your intellectual property of building a tool for yourself, you could possibly convert that to being a tool that the rest of the market might want to buy, like a SaaS tool. So converting a product or a technology that you have in-house to actually selling it to your peers, to your competitors, or to other markets is a great way to productize what you know, what you do, and then actually scale that, again, from one to many, not increasing your costs, but definitely increasing your revenue and your profits. An example of this that is a classic one that if you've been in the tech industry, you've probably heard, is a company called 37 Signals. 37 Signals back in, 2008, 2009, maybe even before then. They were a creative agency. They did UX, they did design, they did development, and ultimately where they went is they said, we need a project management solution that's just easier to use. It's more lightweight. And there were solutions that were on the market, but ultimately they wanted something that was just faster, better, cloud-based. And what they created was a tool called Basecamp. What they found is that they started telling their friends, they started looking for opportunities for others. You might want to check out this tool. It was the dawn of Ruby on Rails. And so it was like all this momentum of, I wonder if other people would want a project management tool like this. Ultimately, that led to 37 Signals becoming completely a product firm. And they ended up releasing Basecamp and Campfire and Lighthouse and other tools. Ultimately, they became a product company, a tech company. They gave up the services. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to give up your services to move to being a tech company, but you might want to think about decoupling them. Because sometimes when you try to be a tech company and a service company in the same house, it can get kind of crowded. They start competing for attention, for focus, and definitely for the culture. So a lot of times service companies struggle with working in one way because they're working for the billable hour. They're working for knowing how to serve customers one-on-one. But when you start moving to a tech company, the way you work, the culture of working, it changes a little bit. So you need to think about maybe decoupling those things either as separate companies or definitely separate departments, and then look to building a tool that can scale beyond your billable hour. Okay, let's recap. So we've already explained how you can definitely grow a services company on the billable hour. That's how most services companies grow, and you can get quite large, up to thousands of employees. But if you really want to think about scaling a revenue opportunity, scaling your profit opportunity, scaling your service company, you need to be thinking about these three things. How do you automate your repeatable services? How do you sell your knowledge? Or how do you turn the unique way of working into a technology solution that you can sell to lots of other people? Ultimately, billable hours fine, but maybe we can scale our service companies through these three ways.